Join Samantha and Hans at the next Macro to Micro Options Power Hour, held each Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Registration is free. Scan this QR code or click on the link in the description.
We've got to find some fresh food here because ISRG, AI, medical devices, that whole sector actually of healthcare, Stifel, right? Very focused on this healthcare component. Alexander, we're so blessed, right? We've got Kenton's Corner of Biopharma in our Slack channel, Dr. Alexander, who is very focused on medical devices and the excitement that, of course, AI brings, like Tempest in early play, et cetera, et cetera. So we're able to find the beneficiaries, but there's also a lot of hits because of what's going on in DC to Medicare, Medicaid, and the healthcare providers, not just UNH on the fraud, but Humana and Cigna. So the navigating of all the medical device plays the past year or two or three has been outsized. Boston Scientific, et cetera, but they're really extended. So they have been also a defensive kind of play in the hardware space of AI, and they have worked extremely well as trend longs because they've been very durable. Every dip has gotten bought in select names, but they're also extended. So I'm talking about finding kind of a new space. Quantum is still doing its speculation dance. Medical device within that has been beautiful. It has done nothing wrong. But as far as anything new, I'm not really seeing it. We actually have a pullback right now in gold. I think it's going to become a little bit more intense. So I'm looking for gold and miners to continue to soften since that April 22nd top call. So we don't have that rotation in gold. If anything, gold kind of succumbing to weakness is helping put a bid in equities. So I think that also rotation out of bonds into equities. We've got a few things that are going on. But for the most part, I haven't seen any really new, strong sector rotation. And of course, you can hide out in utilities and XLV, XLU, XLP, but it's not so exciting. So I'm more in tune to kind of looking to see what happens with banks and semis, both sectors look very tired. So they look like they're in a distributive top. And if we lose banks and we lose semis, why buy anything else?
Yeah, there have been a couple IPOs and everyone's okay, they're getting back on board with, hey, we're going to start getting some deal making and some that sort of revenue for the banks. I don't know how long that goes. There definitely is going to be, I think, a sort of slowdown that we've discussed that in the past. It all depends on how deep it is, how long it lasts. Is the market going to be able to look past that at a certain point? But definitely, I think AI is probably, it's the one. I agree with you. Quantum is one of those things where it's more of a trade than investment at this point. But I think that overall AI space is you can buy high and sell higher. So I think and that's the power gen. I think there's quite a bit of evidence that ramps up the way I think it's going to, that really are going to have some power problems. So they're going to be infrastructure plays. They're going to be alternative energies. And
speaking of which, First Solar had a great explosion from the 400 week, and then it hit a descending 200 day. I said it was a good short. Anyway, his come back down. That's another example where I think it's going to be a few months, but it could base when you're talking about alternative. Also, Jeffrey is excited about the sodium battery. Anyway, that's very technical from an engineering mind, but I'm just looking at a chart setup. It needs a few months to base some more, but that is an area of potential. So it's stock picking. It's not really a sector rotation right now, long story short. But I will warn, right now the option flow is also, I have my internal indicators that showed some weakness that we can tactically trade. And there's a really good reason to hedge. Lots of good reasons to hedge right now into July, August. And I want to focus on that because I did a write-up about that yesterday, in fact. And I know that there are questions around how best to hedge moving into this late summer, because usually it's dull. People don't trade or they don't actively trade because there's a lot of chop. That, A team, they say, goes to the beach and it tells the B team, just keep it together. But we actually have some really big macro risk coming up. The debt ceiling has to get raised still. So this House bill, which got shoved through in the wee hours last night, only 2 Republicans voted no, even though there were a few more that said they wouldn't. Anyway, they cajoled and convinced them to pass it. And now it goes to the Senate, whatever. The point is we've got to get the bill finalized for the market to really have a sigh of relief. We've got the debt ceiling as part and parcel for that. We've got tariffs that are coming in. So Independence Day really should be renamed Isolation Day, but those are not likely to be pulled back. The dollar keeps falling and the tariffs are still a major tool that Trump wants to use to quote unquote rebalance trade. And in the meantime, in the in-between time, companies are trying to figure out how to coast during Q2, which is not so bad, right? From an earnings standpoint, I've got data on that. We got GDP. We haven't shown any contraction of size to be worried about when you talk back the imports that have been surging because of trying to avoid tariffs. But we still have to deal with tariffs, Trump, taxes, debt ceiling. And in the midst of all of this, there has been no peace in Europe, not between armistice that Trump was trying to force between Russia and Ukraine or with Israel. And in fact, Israel is doing its own thing without collaborating. So we definitely don't have a risk-free backdrop, especially when we have a failed 20-year auction like we did yesterday.
Join Samantha and Hans at the next Macro to Micro Options Power Hour, held each Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Registration is free. Scan this QR code or click on the link in the description. Watch the full Options Macro to Micro Power Hour episode by clicking on the video here and subscribe to LaDucTrading YouTube channel for more content.